Could you please explain the distinction between moksha and nirvana?
Two Sanskrit words which have entered the language of people who are engaged in spiritual quests. Nirvana. Nirvana. And, I want to make a distinction for all the young rockers that we're not talking about the famous grunge band. Nirvana was the description that was given by the Shakyamuni, the historic Buddha, for the experience that he had when finally sitting under a Bodhi tree, he attained to moksha. Moksha, M-O-K-S-H-A. Moksha is another Sanskrit word. And although both of them mean liberation, moksha means the liberation into unboundedness, nirvana has, as a word, has some subtle implications that are a little different from simple moksha. So think of moksha as being the breaking of shackles, the breaking of fetters. When you have been locked in by something and you break that, that's referred to as moksha. You've been unlocked and released. You've been released. Nirvana has all of the same implications in Sanskrit that we give this word in English. Liberation doesn't just mean that you are being freed from something that has bound you. That does have that, of course. But it also can mean the liberation of inner potentials. It can mean the release into active conscious use of what had been latent. So the activation of that which is latent is liberation of potential. And then to become liberated from something, this is really where the word moksha is a little bit more very specific. So moksha doesn't really talk about the liberation of potential. Moksha simply refers to the unlocking. But let's talk about what we're being unlocked from for a moment so we understand moksha properly. Moksha is very often a term that's used to describe enlightenment. Someone has attained to moksha. So let's look for a moment at what that is. In the common experience, one gains a sense of identity from the experiences one has in the regular waking, dreaming, sleeping repetition of these three consciousness states day after day from childhood. And experiences occur, and as those experiences occur, impressions are made inside the inner self, inside one's ego structure, as to what it is that I am. I am this, that, I think this and that, and gradually over a period of time we begin to get a sense of identity which is made up of all the most consistent elements of the cloud of thoughts that we've most consistently had most recently. I am this cluster of thoughts, a thought cluster. What do I think about this, let's say politically? What do I think about this environmentally? What do I think about this in terms of nourishing myself? What do I think about? And so then we develop a consistent, mostly consistent, thought cluster, which is our sense of identity. I know who I am because my most recent thought cluster already has pre-prepared statements to make about Taylor Swift, or about politics of the day, or about what's happening in the world, or economics, or what your plan is for retirement, or whatever. And we recognize that an earlier thought cluster, let's say the thought cluster of a decade ago, was a different thought cluster. I may have had some thoughts back then that I still have today, so those are my more consistent elements of identity. But the me of 10 years ago, likely at least 50 or 60% of the thoughts that I was having in my then thought cluster are different to the thoughts I'm having today in my most recent thought cluster. So what this means is our inner sense of identity is going through change all of the time, and it's very ephemeral. What is it? What is the character of these thoughts that fly through our minds? Now, we learn Vedic meditation, and a consistent phenomenon begins to occur that is not subject to change. We regularly experience a layer of our inner being which is absolute. It's a state that is not subject to thinking. It's a state that's not subject to body sensations. It's a state that's not subject to phenomenology. There is no phenomenology. An experience of pure being is an experience of capital T, capital A, the absolute. It's the absolute. And that non-changing unboundedness starts to become a regular feature of my inner sense of self. Who am I? Well, I'm not merely the thoughts that I've had most recently, the thought cluster. I am having thoughts, but I seem to be something that is beyond just the most recent thought cluster. I am the capital K knower. I'm the knower, the witness of the thoughts. I'm identifying with the absolute. The absolute is the unmanifest phase of the unified field. I'm identifying with that which is the source of all this change. And so now I'm beginning to become liberated from the shackles of my identity being dictated to by just whatever most recent thoughts I've had. Instead of the recent thought cluster being the enforcer of identity, there's something new. And that unshackles me. It makes it possible for me to have a sense of self that is not bound by merely the circumstances of the world that most recently happened and my thoughts about those things. I have a sense of self, a layer of me that is literally non-changing, but it's not non-changing as in stubbornness about a particular idea. It's not an idea. It's a backdrop experience of absolute beingness, which is a silent witness of all of the ever-changing phenomenology. This is moksha. Moksha is liberation from the tyranny of having our identity locked into whatever we've been thinking most recently. Something greater than that. So this is what's referred to as moksha. Buddha took it a step further and referred to it as the liberation of all the inner potentials. Not only liberation from the tyranny of everyday thinking, but liberation of our full potential. And so nirvana has a more rich and broad meaning compared with moksha. Moksha, just break the shackles. Nirvana, liberation of everything that comes from inside as a consequence of that breaking of the shackles. Jai Gurudev.